Each fighting game has its own set of rules imposed by the developers. On release, we as competitive players are tasked with mapping them out for a deeper understanding of the game. Often in the process, however, we'll find ways of breaking or abusing the systems created for us to glean some kind of an advantage in-game, and we call this tech. Typically, bar a few exceptions, most tech is specific to the title it's found in. Today, however, I want to talk about a technique popularized in 2009 that continues to exist to this day, but not as a strategy, but as something different, a measurement of time. So, let's learn about plinking. Priority linking, or plinking, was first discovered in Street Fighter 4, and it quickly cemented itself as a mandatory piece of tech for anyone trying to become more consistent with their execution. If you didn't know, this was an entry to the series partly defined by its one-frame links. For the majority of the cast, to hit your optimal combos, you had to be able to time button presses within 1/60th of a second to link together certain attacks. Although it sometimes gets a little overstated how difficult this is to do, it's not easy, and especially when you're playing on that delicious delay netcode in an era where half the monitors used at tournaments were horrifically laggy. Plinking alleviates some of this tightness by turning it into a 2-frame window, doubling your chances of landing these links. Street Fighter 4 had a system where if you press 2 buttons at the same time, the heaviest attack will always come out. It has priority, hence the name. If instead of pressing these buttons together at the same time you leave a 1-frame gap between them, the game will register 2 inputs for the same button. Here I'm pressing heavy punch into medium punch. On the first frame you'll see the heavy punch, and on the second you'll see both the heavy punch and medium punch. But because of the priority system, the heavy punch is what's coming out. It sounds really hard as a technique if you've never done it before, but it's actually very simple. All you need to do is basically piano from your ring finger to your middle finger. Personally, I just hold my middle finger slightly higher than press down in one motion. With any amount of practice, you can hear and feel when you're successful. There is a kinetic quality to it which is easily identifiable. This is pressing 2 buttons at the same time. And this is plinking. You can tell the difference. Now, even though this is a technique popularized in Street Fighter 4, it does have its uses within old Street Fighter titles. It's just a bit more limited. Most pre-09 games aren't particularly link heavy. Sure, links exist, but most characters don't rely upon them or use them every round. Alpha 2, I'd argue, is the older release where links are most pronounced, but plinking functions slightly different. The Street Fighter 4 system prioritizes the heavier buttons when multiple attacks are pressed at the same time. In Alpha 2, it's the reverse. The system prioritizes the lighter button. So if I were to plink my medium punch and light punch in a combo, when I'm off by 1 frame, my light will come out. This is still useful, but far more situational. A common thing I do with Ryu on an opponent's wake up is a meaty crouching medium punch to beat mashing. From this I'm able to hit confirm into a crouching medium kick, cancelled into a fireball of course. The window can be kind of tight, but plinking helps alleviate some of the stress. You can land a Hadouken from your crouching light kick too, so plinking from medium to light allows you to get 2 chances to land this link. Is it as good as getting 2 attempts to land the medium? Maybe not, but it is still good when compared to dropping the combo and eating potentially quite a lot of damage. This is where our utility for plinking in Street Fighter kind of ends. Modern releases have large buffer windows, taking away the need for these specific techniques to reliably hit this type of combo. Simply double tapping a button and doing it slightly early is enough in most cases. However, Street Fighter 4 wasn't the death of plinking in fighters, but its use changed. In Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, there is a technique called Plink Dashing, which I feel like I bring up in every video at this point. It's where you cancel your heavy attack into a dash, then cancel your dash into a heavy, and repeat. This bypasses the restriction on dashing multiple times in one direction, so it makes you insanely quick. Now, despite its namesake, this isn't a plink. It's a carry cancel. You're cancelling your button into a command, the same as cancelling a normal into a throw, but its name actually serves a purpose: timing. Remember how I talked about the visceral kinetic value of plinking? Plink dashing sounds the same. You can hear your errors. It has the exact same timing, and if you're on stick, the same technique. We have very few descriptors in fighting games that depict the speed of inputs, at least ones this specific. We might say, oh, hit that button late for this combo, but late is a range starting with after immediately and ending when the combo drops. If we're being honest, it only just qualifies as guidance. Plinking means pressing a button a frame after another one. It's exact and impossibly useful as a consequence. The window might be bigger than one frame, but never smaller, and that's what we need to know. If I were to teach you how to carry a pot buster, I'd say do a half circle back, press forward, then plink, kick into punch. If I were to teach you how to ROM Infinite in X-Men vs Street Fighter, I tell you that after the super jump medium kick, you need to plink, dash into light kick. If I were to teach you how to carry a fireball with Ken, I tell you to do quarter circle forward, medium kick, and then plink into punch. Out of necessity, we use vague language to describe timing in fighters. What's great is when a title presents us with something fixed we can add to our arsenal. We, as a consequence, can become way more deliberate and clear when discussing ideas and techniques to beginners, and that's always useful. It's useful for even me, someone who's been playing fighting games for over 10 years. This last week I've been picking up Third Strike for the very first time, and even just hours into play, I encountered a situation that happens at least once every single set: wake up parry. It's a pretty common mind game to play. As a defender, you guess high or low on your wake up, and if you're right, you can either get a chunk of damage or at very least throw them into the corner, which is obviously huge. It's not a simple 50-50 though. Of course you have throws too, but you also have delays. The window for a tap parry is 10 frames. However, after an attempt, you'll be locked out of trying again for 23 frames. So what you'll see people do is attempt the parry, then throw out a normal if it didn't connect. What you can do is delay your attack on their wake up after this 10 frame window and potentially counter hit a button, or at very least continue pressure. I don't know if there is a word for this timing, but I personally call it default timing for attacks within this 10 frame window after a wake up, and post parry timing for moves within that following 23 where they're on cooldown. It might not sound like much, but for me as a beginner, it gave me the tools to engage with a part of the game which was growing more and more frustrating. Just having some simple language to define those two timings made Third Strike far more enjoyable. And honestly, what is the point of all these terms we use daily if they aren't there to help scrubs like me access the intricacies and joy these games contain?